Matthew Toms, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brent.
Stoked to have you on the show, mate.
Yeah, it's awesome. Oh, look, I've heard a lot about it, and I've seen some of your podcasts. So it's fantastic that you reached out and asked to have a chat.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's been a long time coming, I think. If I reflect back on when we first connected, it was over in the US. It would have been about 3 years ago, right at this time.
Exactly.
According to my Facebook memories, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And what memories they were.
It was amazing, wasn't it? I remember meeting you for the first time. I probably saw you for the first time, but I think I met you first on the OKC court when you and a couple of the other boys were playing 3-on-3.
Yep.
And I didn't know you guys, and I was kind of like, oh, I'd love to be playing with them. It would be so good. But I just lobbed in that night with Mav, and then, but the memories we collected and the times we had, you know, like watching the games, meeting the players, traveling across the US, like it was a great trip.
For me, for that 7 days, that was the greatest moment of my life in terms of entertainment, exposure, meeting extraordinary people, and just a group of blokes having fun, connecting, supporting each other, and getting some real life experiences, and most importantly, friends for life. And that group that we went away with for that 7 days are still friends for life.
Absolutely. There's a special bond there, isn't there? And I think that comes when you travel with people and you get to experience different things. It's a lifelong bond and it's a lifelong connection. At the time, you were working for the Art Series Hotel, right?
Well, I was Chief Operating Officer of D Group, and
Yep.
and one of my responsibilities was Art Series Hotel Group.
Yeah, that's right. I remember because we were staying at a place in Hollywood, and it was a beautiful place, and there was puppy dogs walking around, and it was connected by yourself. Where was it?
The London.
The London. That's right, the London. Yeah. I've got some epic memories from that place on top of the pool and having a chat about life and business and purpose and all those type of things. And I also remember going back there the year after and having my own conversation with myself that was very, very similar to the conversation that me and you had a personal breakthrough at the same time as well.
Look, absolutely. I remember sitting on those lounges. I reckon we were on there for about 2 hours, and we we're both going through a bit of a life pivot. And we really talked it through, and it actually got quite emotional. And it was real and genuine. And yeah, after 5 days of knowing you, I opened up to you more than I probably opened up to anyone.
Yeah, mate, it was a beautiful experience, and I'm most appreciative for you having the trust in me to do so. And it always sticks with me, and I'll never forget it. And it inspired me as well to create shifts only 12 months later. So, but mate, tell the listeners, what have you been up to? What's been going on?
Yeah, so I guess where it really came, I was in corporate for 25 years, and I had a health event about 3 years ago. So just over 3 years ago, it was in July 2017. And that health event put me into hospital for 7 days in full isolation. And it was at that moment when I was lying on my bed, and I was always pretty fit, that I realized I really didn't understand a lot about me and my body and my organs. And it wasn't just about going and riding 100 Ks or doing a 10 or 20K run. There's a lot more to understanding around my health and my inner organs. And at the same time, I'd had some really close people to me suffer from chronic conditions, which was absolutely tragic. Mum had already been diagnosed with breast cancer. My best mate's dad died of a heart attack. My uncle died of a heart attack. All these chronic conditions were happening around me while I was lying on that hospital bed. And I just wanted to start doing research and understanding it. And that's when I realized enough was enough. So I finished up with the D Group, who are absolutely extraordinary to me over a 16-year period, and jumped into a health startup. And that's been my absolute commitment and absolute focus over the last 2.5 years. And we're now just hit the market, and we've got our first paid clients, and it's going extraordinarily well.
Congratulations, mate. That's sensational. I remember when you were talking about this app. I remember you were just talking about it. Remember we went on that bike ride and you blew me up in the space of like no time. I hadn't ridden for ages, and you were taking me around and up on the Mornings Peninsula there, and I was like, oh, this guy can ride. But I remember you smashed me, and at that point you were talking about it, and you were trying to bring it to life, and get medical buy-in from significant parties in Australia, and then release to market with some pilots. So what's that process been like, and how's it actually been for you?
Yeah, it's been, and particularly with COVID-19 over the last 6 months, it's been a wild journey. Let's be honest. Going from that stable job and corporate and running a team of, I think I had 20 GMs, we had 600 staff across these 11 companies. Like, it's a completely different world to all of a sudden running something on your own. And then I brought in some amazing co-founders and trying to start something from absolute scratch with really nothing but a network, some experience, and some expertise. That was really all we had. But we had a passion, and it was that passion that has really driven us. And we had a really clear vision on what we wanted and what we wanted to achieve. And that was that we wanted to prevent chronic conditions for the people that we care about, and the devastating impact that it has. And we've been able to achieve that, which has been extraordinary. So really the last 18 months, last 2 years has been, it's been incredibly up and down, but we've had a really clear focus, and we've really always known all the way through this journey what we want, where we want to get to. So every challenge we hit and every hurdle we hit and every time we get tripped up, and we either trip ourselves up or someone comes and trips us up, we embrace. And we really take it on. We say, okay, what have we learned? How are we going to do things differently, and how are we going to further improve?
Amazing. And what's the biggest challenge you've faced so far?
What's the biggest challenge? Probably the biggest challenge is we've applied for a lot of grants, and on time and time again, we've been knocked back. So that's been a huge challenge. But what we've learned through that process has been massive. And I think the biggest challenge was probably recognizing how much we need to pivot, how much we need to continually change, how much we need to keep talking to our customers, talking to our clients, and understanding what it is really that they want, not just what we want to give them. And I think that was a really big challenge for us, and particularly for me, because I'm pretty strong, can be pretty strong-minded at times. So that side's been probably the biggest challenge, but the most rewarding. And the outcome has without doubt been a hell of a lot better than if we had just stuck to that original business plan I wrote near on 3 years ago.
Funny that, isn't it? You know, the biggest challenges force us to get more creative, innovate, really test us, and you really need to go within to find that resilience, to want to keep going and keep pursuing things. And you know, as you keep grinding it out and moving forward, different opportunities come up, and some things aren't meant to be. And then it's the things that aren't meant to be that lead you to the things that are meant to be. And like you said, you find out that, you know, after going through it all, it's far better, and your product or service and yourself is far better than what you would be if it didn't happen at all.
100%. And then in February, we're about to hit the market, and we're all ready. And then obviously what has happened, which has been shocking for the entire world. And we then had to sit back and go, well, how are we going to make the most of this opportunity? So with that, we completely improved our engagement, our notifications, our structure, our personalization, our prioritization. And that has made a massive difference to our end product.
Mate, I would think right now is a really, really good time, and the global events that have happened and are happening around us, I would have thought that's a really, really good time for your product, for your app. I would have thought it would be an amazing time for it. So tell the listeners, tell us about the app, tell us how it works, tell us the reason why, and what the benefits are for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, the reason why, first and foremost, this is where it all started, was because I wanted to do something because I felt that nothing was being done. And that was around the people that we care about, truly understanding about when they need to be tested for what information. So they need to be able to access the right information around their health. The biggest challenge we have is we've got so much information out there. You just type in anything, heart or skin or type 2 diabetes or COVID-19, you get 1 trillion responses. Where do you start and who do you trust? So we've been able to aggregate the best information available in the market, which is primarily an Australian research foundations who are absolutely fantastic, and then international as well. So, and we've been able to aggregate all that information into bite-sized pieces. So we focus on chronic conditions. We focus on your heart. We focus on type 2 diabetes, cancers, stroke, and mental health, mental illness. They're the big five. And then with the cancers, we look after the top 18 cancers that we as Australians and humans can contract. So then what we look at based on your personalization. So we look at your age, gender, family history, family health history, personal health history, your alcohol consumption. So on average, how many drinks do you have a week? Whether you're a smoker, non-smoker, or a past smoker. And our algorithm is able to determine what your priority should be for you. So, and then we provide all the missions and all the information and give you access to the right information for you at the right time. And then we really encourage you then to understand how to self-check, and also then understand how to look after the people that you care about. And then also when to go to the GP and what questions to ask the GP when you're there. Because again, we sit with your GP between 8 and 11 minutes. We don't have a relationship, or more often than not, we don't have a relationship with our GP like our parents used to. We'd go to the GP, you'd see the same GP every time, and you'd walk in and they say, oh, how's your mum? How's your dad? How's your grandparents? How's your uncle? What's your brother up to? You know, we don't have that relationship, and we want to get back to that, but at the moment we don't. So our solution is in an app form. It's developed for organizations to embed as a outstanding health and wellness solution to their staff, to drive a much greater care culture, and to drive greater engagement. And it's also for individuals. So we're about to launch our B2C model in early December, which has a real I care feel about it, moving into the Christmas period.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm a typical, well, I'm not typical, I'm a 43-year-old fella. I feel like I look after myself. I train every day. I look after myself. It's not like every now and then I don't go and have a party or whatever at the same time, you know, but I've got a bit of, fear around going to the doctor and getting some of these checks done because, you know, I don't need the doctor. I feel fine. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I appreciate where I'm at in life, and I appreciate in the next 20 years, some of these life-changing events, or potentially life-ending events, could be on the radar, you know, and, you know, I'm out in the sun a lot. I check my skin, and I've got a couple of freckles and that type of thing. I believe I do have some sort of heart history through my biological side, in terms of how my biological grandfather passed away. So I do have some level of fear there around, you know, exploring and getting checked so that I feel, you know, primed for the next 40 years of my life, hopefully. So what do I do? Like, I kind of like want to do something about it. Is this going to help me take those first steps, or?
It helps you take all the steps. But first and foremost, do you have a fear, just as an analogy, do you have a fear that your motor vehicle might break down in the future?
Of course.
Okay. So what do?
I take it to the mechanic.
Okay. And when you take it to the mechanic, how often do you take it to the mechanic?
Every 6 months.
Okay. And do you take it to the mechanic because there's something wrong, or do you take it to the mechanic to make sure something doesn't go wrong?
Yeah, rarely there's anything wrong. I take it to the mechanic because just to get a service, just to make sure it continues to run well, so something doesn't go wrong.
That's right. So it's all about preventative management and preventative maintenance. Okay. You're not putting your car in because you think something's going to blow up, but you're putting it in to make sure it doesn't. By going to our GP, it's exactly the same. By understanding the tests we should be having, the self-test, whether it be, you know, checking for women, checking their breasts, for men, checking their testes, to check your skin, to check your bowel movements, and understanding if there's any blood in the stool, blood in the toilet, blood on the tissue, anything like that. There are so many ways that we can be self-assessing ourselves, and our solution helps you with that. But then you go to that GP, just like you'd go to the mechanic, and say, I want to have this, and this checked because based on my predisposition, my genetic, and from a lifestyle perspective, this is where my potential risks might be, and I just want to be ahead of it. And by being ahead of it, you make sure the car doesn't break down on the freeway with the kids in it in 2-3 months' time. And it's exactly the same analogy. So it's all around, and you look after yourself physically and visually, because that's really important to you, but you have to put in work to do that. And it's exactly the same. We have to do exactly the same in terms of going to our GP at the right time, going to our dermatologist. And it is so easy. It is so easy to have a blood test, to have a blood pressure test, to have an ECG, to have a dermatologist check over our skin. It is incredibly straightforward, but and can provide some amazing insights. Also can provide insights in terms of things that we should be altering or changing in our lifestyle to, again, further reduce the risk. So my, and this is the whole reason, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know when we should be going. We don't know what we should be speaking to them about. What are the key tests I should be having? How much is it going to cost me? And Medicare covers almost everything that you need. So, so I would just implore yourself and all of your viewers to really think about, look, if they're going to put their motor vehicle in, and you know when your motor vehicle is due for a service, and at 10,000, 20,000 and 80,000, you have different tests as the kilometers go on. It's exactly the same with our bodies, and let's do it to make sure that we look after our current, but more importantly, our future self, and not just for us, but for the people that care about us and the people that we need to care about.
When you said all that, I really feel like a sense of responsibility. You know, when you position it that way, it's like, hang on, I've got to look after myself here, because there's people around me that depend on me, and they're young, you know, like my children, and also others around, whether or not it's in business or friends or family. So I've never really thought around it that way, which, you know, the way you language it and dialect it, it makes total sense. So you've got B2B at the moment. You've got clients, you've had a few trials too. Is that correct?
Yeah, heap of trials. So we've had hundreds and hundreds of people testing it. So many organizations testing it. We learned so much through that process. Yeah. And now, now we're in market, but we're taking it step by step. So our first company was 40 staff. Our second company was 80 staff. Our third company is 330 staff across Australia and New Zealand. And really just taking it step by step, because again, we're still learning, and they've been amazing, but the feedback we've got, and I think we have, for the first two companies, they completed over 5,000 missions, for just what is equivalent of 120 staff, and over 1 million points. So it's all gamified as well. And we've just ticked over 1 million points. So, to have, 120 staff can complete 5,000 missions over the last 3 weeks. Our engagement has been absolutely amazing, but the feedback has been next level.
Incredible. Yeah. So how do I do it? I want to do it. I also want to do it with my staff or my team, more because I don't have full-time staff, if that makes sense. We've got contractors working all over the place. There's a few on board, but how do I roll it out for my team? How do I roll it out for myself? Because I'll do it. Simple as that. I'm ready for this.
You're a classic. So
I went and had a prostate check about 9 years ago, right? And I went, and it was I was probably 33, 34 at the time. I remember walking in, being pretty nervous and stuff running through my head. And then it was it was okay. I walked out and I left and was like, okay, well, yeah, did that. Got the results, great, no probs. And then I actually went back about 3 or 4 years ago, funnily enough. And I asked the guy, hey, I just want to get another check, thinking, because I wouldn't say I've had bowel problems in the past. However, I just wanted to make sure. And he said to me, you're too young. And I was 40 at the time. He said, you're too young. You don't need to do it. And I was kind of like, oh, I'd prime myself up to come back and do it again. But he kind of said I was too young. So I'm kind of determined to overcome that, because it really set me back. And I was like, well, if he said to me, I don't need to do it, I'm too young, well, when do I do it?
Yeah. And this is the thing. My view is that you're never too young. Okay, so if there's something that you want, then you should be going. And I'll tell you a quick story. One of my best mates who lost his dad to a heart attack. And it was totally unexpected. His dad was fully fit, just retired, probably 3 to 6 months. Outstanding gentleman. Just went down to have a lie down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as often some of us do, and just have a bit of a kip on the weekend, and tragically never woke up. And Andrew, who's my mate, he went and had I was encouraging him, go to the GP, go and get your tests now. You've obviously there could be something genetic there. He was 49, went to see his GP, and his GP said, oh no, mate, you're fine. You're 49. I wouldn't recommend you come back until you're 50. He was 50 in 3 months' time. Now, for me, that's madness.
I know.
That's absolutely
That's crazy.
So, absolutely. So what we have is there's a bell curve on everything and everyone. So there's a bell curve on IT professionals. There's a bell curve on fitness professionals. There's a bell curve on podcast professionals. There's a bell curve on lawyers and mechanics and baristas. There's a bell curve on all of them. There's a bell curve on GPs as well.
Right.
So, and sometimes I feel that we put too much trust in our GPs and not enough trust in our own gut. And it needs to be a balance. Our GPs are experts. There's absolutely no doubt, but there's a bell curve on that level of expertise.
Sure.
So what our solution says, it also helps you do is say, it encourages you to say, well, I want the test anyway, or what would the harm be if I had the test? So I recognize I'm too young, but what would the risk be if I actually did have that PSA blood test? I had one 8 years ago. I want to have another one now because that gave me a benchmark. I want to see whether there's been any elevation in my readings. If there has been an elevation, then I understand it, and then I can determine what I want to do with it. If there's been no elevation, then I can walk out of there going, I'm okay. So this is something that, again, I think that this is where we need to put our health in our hands, and not just put our health in experts in GPs and the medical sector.
We have a trend to externalize responsibility for our own lives. Sometimes humans, we can be lazy at times.
Absolutely.
And we probably don't want to think, and we probably want to think about the things that, make us happy or we can have a good time with. And, but we've got to take responsibility. It's our body. It's not somebody else's body.
Our tagline is your health in your hands.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what it's all about. And we call it Well Aware because and the company's called Well Aware because we want everyone to be well aware of their own health, of their own opportunities to improve their health, how to improve the health of the people that they care about, and to be well aware of the opportunities of how we can actually go about it.
So you've released it B2B.
Yep.
You mentioned now B2C is coming December.
Yep. So to answer your question, in terms of, or if you're interested, or if anyone's interested, just reach out to me at Matthew@wellaware.life. Have a look at our website, which is wellaware.life, and we'd love to have a conversation.
Yeah, awesome. I'll do that for sure, and I encourage any of the listeners to do the same. Now, mate, you're a well-studied individual. You've spent some time abroad studying over at Harvard. You also do business coaching and life coaching. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell us a bit about your methodology, because we did a little bit of stuff. We worked on a project for a fundraiser some time back, and we worked really, really well together. I noticed that you're quite an energetic guy, but I brought a lot of energy, and you brought a lot of intelligence to the situation from your experience in running fundraisers and your network. But I remember having a conversation after that successful event around your background and your coaching methodology and what you learned. And I absolutely love the framework because I'm not that. I'm not you. I'm creativity, act on intuition, consciousness, energy, and I'll fuck up as many times as I can, knowing that I'll get to the point eventually and provide enough value to learn enough from the fuck ups and get there. But it's madness sometimes, right? And people like yourself are more balanced, calculated, intelligent, and can execute it probably with far more efficiency than what I can. Maybe I'm getting better with time, or maybe I play down myself too much. But you're a sharp individual.
So you need both, right? You need exactly what you've got, and you need a little bit of what I've got.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can't just have one. Okay. And so I'm all about structure. And my philosophy is I've run a large number of very different companies in very different verticals, from hotels to telecommunications to facilities management to service offices to car parking to storage to real estate to property management, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of those under the same banner of the organization, and we had a whole lot of different businesses. And now I'm in health, unified communications, and parking technology. And what I think is really important is having a level of structure. And my philosophy is that the vast majority of businesses are exactly the same, to 70%. And then 30% is the true point of difference, differential expertise, and the vertical you're actually in. But if we look at a 70% of a business, 70%. The two most important things in business is one, having a really clear vision. Okay, where am I going to be in 6 months? Where am I going to be in 12 months? Where am I going to be in 3 years? And maybe push it out to 5. Okay, be really clear on where you want to be, but where you want to be personally as much as where you want to be professionally. We've created this great divide in terms of our leaders, where we're taking the business in a certain direction, but we as the individual driving that and the leader within the organization isn't going on that same path. And we end up with this gap, and we end up sitting here and going, well, I wanted this and the business is here. There's a huge lack of alignment. So that alignment is absolutely key. And then once you've determined that vision, then you can very easily create the strategy to actually deliver on it. So I see business as very simple. The most important part, though, is the foundation of any business. When we build buildings, we can build fabulous buildings, commercial buildings, residential towers, and industrial parks. The most important thing about that building is not the fit out, it's not the paint, it's not the tile choice, or the windows or the view. The most important part is the foundation of the business and the foundation of the building. So if you get those foundations wrong, then over time, that building is going to start to have cracks. It's going to cost a hell of a lot more money to fix. It's going to create a whole lot of challenges. And bottom line, it could fall down. And what we don't spend enough time, particularly small business, small, medium-sized businesses, get that foundation right. But even some of the big businesses that I've been supporting over the last 2 or 3 years to bring some cash in so I could be that entrepreneur that I wanted to be, they've got exactly the same problems. So understanding the importance of your values and your core purpose and your culture, understanding your brand, understanding your target market, understanding having the right process, procedures and systems, having the right people and the right job description, but not a job description anymore, the job function. What is it that they're going to do and when are they going to have it? And then in the big circle, we put a big circle around all of that and we call it accountability. And how do we drive the right accountability where we all understand what each other expects and what we need from each other and what they need from us. And that's a really quick 60-second synopsis. But if we get that right, our business goes through the roof. But if we don't, then all of a sudden we just keep hitting hurdle after hurdle after hurdle and we don't know why. Most of the time it's because we don't have a clear vision and our staff and our team don't understand what their vision is and that our foundation isn't rock solid.
I was fortunate enough to have you mentor me for some structural and just setting some concrete goals in place about how long ago was it? Was it last year around this time? I think I'd just come back from, divorce and feeling pretty average about life and feeling pretty shitty. And I remember getting my mojo back and I was ready to go again and I was on the offense and I knew that my energy would take me so far, but I needed someone to kind of like, all right, like get really, really clear around, what are the objectives? How will you know when you've got there? What are the steps? And then you held me accountable to those. And it was a really beneficial experience for mine because at that time I was actually doing things on my own. And I was in my own head a lot and bouncing things around. And even though like I've been in business and some people would say been successful, like I still needed help. And so if anyone is like in business and or might have their own business or want to start one, I can highly recommend Matt just to be getting really clear and succinct about what it is that you want to achieve, why you want to achieve it, and then putting those necessary steps in place and having the accountability around getting them done. And the methodology you use is really, really powerful. So, but it really made a big difference to me and it got me going again. And then, as you know, I've been able to forge my own way and build a team around me now where they kind of hold me accountable and they're kind of the structure that I didn't have back then. And so, but it was such a pivotal time and so grateful for that, being able to work with you on that stuff as well. We've done a couple of little things now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I might just also add, and thank you for that. And I'll look, how much I love working with you. The other part is then around leadership and understanding what a true leader is and understanding that framework of leadership and how to be an effective leader. But the leader isn't just the top person in the organization. Every staff member within the organization, even if they're day one, need to understand leadership and need to understand how they can be a leader in their particular role. So I feel that there's too much top of the iceberg leadership focus and that leadership should be all the way through the organization.
100%. We're only talking about that the other day around, vulnerability in leadership. And we're talking about the fact that it doesn't necessarily need to be the person who has the title to be shown the vulnerability. Anyone can play that role, and so long as somebody plays that role. And like leadership at the moment, I mean, to find that right now, good luck. But like for me, it's all about. For me, I come from there's different approaches. What I stand for is, alignment to self, your purpose, understanding your values and beliefs, and living authentically from your own center of truth. And it sounds a bit hippie and it sounds a bit tree huggerish, I reckon, but it actually, if you can tap into that, a lot of the fear and, I don't know, unnecessary, probably thoughts around what other people think, I notice they drop away, and then it creates this space and it creates this energy where people will show up through being clear, being aligned. The people who aren't meant to be in your world are not there, and then you create the space for the right people to show up. Now, if I spoke about leadership in that facet to a CEO of like a big bank, his eyes are going to glaze over. He's going to go, who is this guy? Do you know what I mean? So there's so many different interpretations of leadership, and they're all subject to our personal projection. What is it for you? Because, there's the core truths of leadership, and then everybody's got their different, I reckon, personal flavor on what that is. And I shared a little bit of my philosophy. What about is it for you?
Yeah, well, for me, it's about empathy and engagement. It's about communication, and really open communication, and being able to communicate both ways. It's about having a really clear vision and communicating it to everyone. Not enough people who call themselves leaders in business actually communicate what their vision is to every person within the organisation, and then how we're going to get there in terms of the strategy. It's about accountability. It's about, as leaders, we need to be coaching, educating, training, and empowering our team, and all of our team, not just one or two because we like them and we don't really like the others, so we don't get involved. We need to get involved with everyone, and our role needs to be, as leaders, we need to be there for our staff. Our staff aren't there for us, and so that's my biggest takeout. My biggest learning has been, I need to be available. I need to be there to provide that structure, to provide the vision and the change management and the strategy, but to empower, coach, educate, and train, to hold my team accountable, but for them, and allow them to hold me accountable, is just as important. And then what I call managing 360. And that is, do I understand everyone around me and what it is that they need from me and what it is that I need to provide to them? So understanding those key areas and wrapping communication, wrapping engagement, wrapping empathy, wrapping accountability around it and then having true KPIs, true SLAs. Like, we've got to have SLAs for every one of our staff members. What are they expected to do and when are they expected to do it by? Whether they're answering the phone or whether they're manufacturing a widget or whether they're providing a service, we've got to have really clear accountabilities and KPIs and SLAs, because if we have that, then we can measure. Okay, and if you can't measure, then it just becomes a gut feel. So there's a whole range of aspects within leadership. But most importantly, leadership is around vision, strategy, and change management. Management, being a manager, is looking after the operations of the business and looking after the foundation of the business. And too often our leaders get too stuck in the operations. Yeah, and our leaders are just doing. And you go and speak to a leader and they say, "Oh no, I haven't got time. Oh look, I can see you in 3 weeks." I mean, no, that's not how it works. We're there for them. That's why we're here. That's what we've got to do. So to say that we're here for 3 weeks means we're too involved in the day-to-day of the business. We've got too much on our to-do list. And we're not empowering our team to be able to do what they need to do for us and for them.
Servant leadership, something that I live and breathe in terms of, like you said, being there for the team. And from biblical perspective, if you have a look at some of the biblical leaders, like for example Jesus, he was very much a servant leader there for his people. If you choose to believe in that school of thought, which is my faith, but he was there to serve his people, and it's no different in business to be there to serve the people around you. And talk about having structure and talk about leadership, and I absolutely love it when I've got people around me that hold me accountable to some of the bullshit that comes out of my mouth. Do you know what I mean? Like it's fantastic, you know, because, you know, like somebody told me yesterday, goes, you just shoot from the hip all the time and you're a walking contradiction. And I said, I am, but I'm a walking contradiction because whilst I might be talking about something from a macro perspective that's totally this way, at a micro perspective, I'll be coming at it from this angle right in the detail, and it just conflicts and it creates energy. So it calls me this walking contradiction. And so, you know, there are times where I absolutely love it when the people around me are holding me accountable, because I know, for one, that they're engaged. I know number two, that they actually care. And I know three, they want the result as well, just as much as what I might want the result. So when people around hold the leader accountable, it's an amazing thing also for the leader, because in a lot of times in an organization, a leader can be perceived to be intimidating, or people don't want to approach the leader or don't want to be open and vulnerable and speak to the leader. And I think if we can break down some of that and empower everyone around us to have, not to say that to have a flat organization, but to have a flat mindset around an organization, the fact that we're all human beings, that we're all living and breathing entities trying to come together to achieve something for the common good, then that framework and that human side of it and humanity side of it, I think, is a great mindset to break away some of those, I don't know if stigma is the right word, however, some of those fears that staff might have around, you know, approaching a leader or holding them accountable or being honest and talking to them. And a leader wants nothing else but honesty, because sometimes they feel lonely because they don't necessarily get told what they'd love to be told.
Yep. Without doubt. And I think just to round this out, there and just if we're going to have one takeaway from this discussion around leadership, that is that if you're, it's hard when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a sole trader, when you're in a startup. But once you've got a business with a team, once you've a medium size or a medium size to large business, if you're not spending 90% of your time, so whether you're doing a 40-hour week or a 60-hour week or an 80-hour week, if you're not spending 90% of your time on the vision for the business, the strategy to achieve that vision, and change management, what can we change to improve? If you're not spending 90% of your time on that, then you've got something wrong, okay? And you need to make some changes. And that makes you look at the whole way that you're running your business, the whole way that you're running your company. Most people say, well, I haven't got the right people, or I can't trust them. Well, you're the leader. Do something about it.
Yeah.
Right? So, but if you're spending, and most people spend 90% of their time in operations, their to-do list, all their meetings, all their meetings, all the action items, all the reports they have to read, et cetera, the phone calls they need to make, everything that's blocking up our diary every week. And we look at our diary on a Sunday night and go, oh my God, I haven't got any time this week. Okay, that means we've got no time. We're doing everything in just the to-do and fixing things that are normally in the foundation. And that is our staff aren't right, our culture's not right, our brand's not right, our target market's not right, our processes and systems aren't right. We haven't got the right sales team, we haven't got the right marketing team. I don't trust my finance guy. Our IT's not working, et cetera. That's where all the problems are.
That's true, right?
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter whether you're PHP or whether you're a startup. Fundamentally, are exactly the same.
Oh, it's funny. So you've come from working in a big organization to being an entrepreneur and to starting your own things. You've been doing some consulting and you've been working on Well Aware and the app, and you've got that great network that you've got. What's one or two things you've learned about making that transition? Because I know there's there's always a lot of people out there who are going through, the midlife shift, you could call it. I don't think crisis is necessarily the right word for people going through a midlife transition. I think it speaks to the 80s and Ferraris and girls and all that type of thing. But we've changed a bit, I reckon, in this day and age. So the midlife transition, what's one or two things you could offer advice from your experience in going through that yourself?
Yeah, look, I think it's all about understanding who you are, first and foremost, and what it is that you really want. We need to accept that it's okay to be selfish. And when I say it's okay to be selfish, it's okay to look inside and see who we really are. Because by the time we get to a certain age, and that's why I think that it's that kind of that midlife crisis term, which again, I agree with a lot of what you said before. But if you start, and because I think it's when we get to that, 40 to 50, and all of a sudden we've matured, we've probably started our family, we've had our family, we've been married, and all of a sudden now, for the first time in our life, we're actually think, oh yeah, but what about me? Okay, and we've forgotten about me. All we've done is we've been focusing on everybody else. So I think first and foremost is understand who you are, okay, and what is your truth. And once you understand that, and be selfish about it, it doesn't mean we take selfish actions because of it, but we're selfish in terms of really starting to understand who we are, what it is that we want, where do we really want to be, how do we actually want to truly live our life. And that's what I did. And I did it because I had a health event. So I was forced to do it. Otherwise, I'd probably be still getting up at 4 a.m. every morning and doing 60-hour plus weeks, absolutely loving it, but killing myself at the same time. So I think that first and foremost, it's about that inner truth, understand who you are, what it is that you really want. And then once you understand that, and you don't do it in a day, like this takes time to really discover yourself and be open to yourself and be open to all of those thoughts. And some of those thoughts are going to be amazing thoughts. Some of those thoughts can be super crazy, but that's okay as well. And then determine, where do you really want to be in 5 years' time? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 20 years? And then determine how you're going to get there. And how you're going to bring all those people that you care about along with you for the journey. So that would be my first recommendation. And then secondly, find something you're super passionate about. And we always hear about this, if it's something you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work. Well, look, I'm super passionate about health. It does still feel like work.
It does, at times it does, doesn't it? It's good that you're honest. There's some refreshing honesty. Fuck.
Of course.
I know.
There are times when it's a churn and I'm going, oh my God, do I really have to do that? But hey, I'm the part owner of the business. We came up with the idea. It's my responsibility. I'm going to sit there for the next 3 hours and I'm going to burn it and I'm going to get it done. But it's but find something you're super passionate about and that you believe in, and give it a go. And there's no reason why we can't start things while we're still working. Start to explore, start to do some research, start to do some learning. It doesn't mean quit my job, not have an income, and I'm going to go and take this massive risk. Okay, so you can do it in conjunction, in parallel.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that big, risky step off the cliff. Although I do encourage people to have no plan B, just to see if they're really up for it or not. But it doesn't have to be scary. If you can pull the financial triggers in the background to give you the longer burn rate, then it doesn't have to be as stressful as trying to maintain the same income that you might have had. So I always say to anybody about to go through that process, just reduce all the BS out of your life in terms of unnecessary expenditure. Most of the time it's materialistic, fancy shit that people don't actually need. I said, remove all that and then go back to base. And then that way you're going to be able to come from a place of, like you say, hook into your truth, take your time to process that, do things you love. And that's going to give you the longest amount of time it's going to give you the biggest opportunity in terms of time to be successful in that venture. Where I see people, they make the switch, they might have a good income from working full time for a corporate. They make the switch and they still have that expectation to have that same income coming in. Otherwise they feel as though they're going backwards, and then that gives them a short runway to be successful. And they go, oh shit. And there's pressures financially, whether it's family or education for the kids or whatever it might be. And they're like, holy shit, I've got to go back to here because I need to look after my family and this is getting too hard and I can't see a way out of it. So then they go back, and it's kind of like, then they've got the mindset, oh, well, I learned that lesson that, like maybe I can't be in business and I can't do it myself, when in fact, that's not necessarily the truth. I just structure everything the right way to give them the biggest and the greatest opportunity to be successful. And I see so many entrepreneurs who make that transition lose because of that.
Yep. So who are you? Where do you want to be? What is it that you really want? How are you going to get there? And it doesn't mean you don't have to quit your job. It might be within your job. You know, it might be taking a pivot within the organization you're currently working in, and the risk there. It doesn't need to be throw everything out, grab a bag and tour Australia. You can do whatever you want, but it's got to be practical. Like, at the end of the day, we have to be realistic. We have to be practical, but we also have to sometimes take risks.
I love risks.
I know.
I reckon.
So do I.
I know you do. Well, there's that thing in us as men that we want to be. We need to be warriors. That we need to hunt. That we need to go out and, you know, like going back to the caveman days and our roots. We need to be out attacking and hunting. And, you know, a lot of us have been in lockdown for a long period of time and haven't been able to get out there and attack on the outside. However, I've just tried to maintain this warrior mindset the entire way through it. Because being on the offense and being on the defense is a mindset, and it doesn't matter in the situation that you're in, one or the other, choose one and then go after it, I reckon. But too many people just go into defense, or what I otherwise like to call learned helplessness, and don't do anything, and don't help themselves. And we were talking about that before with your app, about taking responsibility for your own health, and make your own decisions. And yeah, that thing of learned helplessness, I think we're seeing it more and more in society these days. And, you know, some of the structures and systems around it actually support and encourage that type of mindset and behaviour, which can be concerning.
Yep. So, BV, I'll ask a question of you.
Okay.
What's been your biggest lockdown lesson?
I think patience, mate. I think I've learned a lot about patience. I've been, you know, my arrangements in terms of, I have my kids week on, week off. And so the 5 days that I got them, the 7 days that I got them, I'm like a dad and energy, have fun, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns into 7 days without them. And it also turns into 7 days without anybody. And so, you know, I've been doing my thing and working. And then it's about the 3rd or 4th day where I'm on my own, that being in my own head and being in my own thoughts, sometimes they can go kind of spiral down into holes, and then it takes some time. Can take a couple of hours to come out of them, and I may be a little bit have a disempowered state when I wake up in the morning. However, a lot of what was driving that, I noticed, was this need within myself to be productive or achieving something every day. And what I've learned through it all is that you can just show up each and every day and put your best foot forward, or put a 7 or an 8 or a 9 day on the board in terms of how productive you are, and try and enjoy it. Then the results, and as crazy as this sounds, the results don't matter, even though they do. But being patient enough to enjoy every day, being patient enough to have faith and trust that results will come, and just being patient. And I mean, to put this theory, you could say, or some of my, however you want to language it, into context, you know, I got to the end of March, start of April, and we launched Tectify. And the guy said to me, "Do you still want to do it?" And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, we're going to do it. You know, you're going through a process, starting a business. There's a name, there's a logo, there's branding, there's position, there's the offering, there's the service, there's the vendors, all these things to do. And it got to 4 or 5 months in, and I was doing a great job and getting all this stuff set up, and, you know, going to market and branding and campaigns and marketing and great vendor relationships. 4 months in, I still hadn't sold anything, and it's still a great idea for a business, but there's no results. So I'm sitting there going, keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. They're going to come, they're going to come. And even though I've got experience in business, I'm still a human being too. I did know they'd show up. Of course I did, because I believe in energy, doing the right thing, and, you know, a bit of spiritual stuff. And, you know, I kept showing up. And then it wasn't too long after that, a month later, then it's order. And it's like the results of the efforts on a daily basis showed up. And it was kind of like, I was patient. I didn't force anxiety. I didn't create anxiety within myself. Patient, relaxed, and, you know, to see Tectify 7 months in now, and, you know, we've done over 350K, and it's not about the number. It's got nothing to do with that, but it's just the fact to get some traction and get some, you know, runs on the board that create the foundations. We're talking about the foundations of the business and doing some strategic sessions around that. Now puts us in a great place for 2021 to grow and expand out of that through, you know, we've got some projects and some acquisition ideas on the table for the next 6 months to see us growth and really solidify ourselves in the market. But to answer your question, patience, Matty.
Great answer. Well said.
So patience, and in the world, in this crazy world, everyone's running around, or they were running around at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and everyone's had to stop. Yep. It's like all moving like this, and it's boom, like we've all got this shunt. So it's like, whoa, So I believe it's the most fascinating time ever in the history of humanity to be alive. Yep. So what comes from it, time will tell.
And I think one thing I'd like to add to that also is I feel that certainly we, as in I and my family, have learned to live, I guess, a lot more frugally. And we don't need to spend like we were spending. And it's going to be interesting whether we forget that or whether we can maintain it. But the ability to be able to, income's reduced, but cut costs, but not necessarily be unhappy because of it. We're just as happy as we've been. And enjoying that different time. And it's not going out to pubs and clubs and restaurants and blowing, big money. What it's about is about saying, what's really valuable? And what was really valuable was between our 2 lockdowns here in Melbourne, having people over for dinner and just enjoying that was just remarkable. And I look back on it and go, that was just fantastic. Why aren't we just doing that more? Where we just get 4 or 6 mates around the dinner table, have a nice bottle of red, have a nice meal, and just talk. And not need all that thumping music or bumping into 20 other people that you're not really there to see.
Yeah, sure.
So for me, that ability to be able to just, center ourselves and to really determine what's been really valuable. What have I learned that's been really valuable over this 6 months that I can maintain post-COVID, post-lockdown?
It's a good lesson. It's been an incredible year. If you look back to, say, the year 2000 and, like 2020, it's got the numbers, like 2020, 2020. If you had a thought that this would happen back then, you would have said, no freaking way. No freaking way. No freaking way. And it's got this, I don't know, I've turned all like real spiritual. I don't know. I've had so much time on my own that I've got this consciousness keeps coming up. And, I've been at the Dream Factory at night and just downstairs, and I just stand there and I look around and I start visualizing what's actually going to happen, like with the place, and to the point where I start seeing what like an opening would look like, and I can start hearing kids' voices, stoked, big smiles, skating around, and I sit in it some nights, and I just get energized through it all, and through slowing down and through stopping and through having all that time, my vision's gotten really, really clear. And then being able to, for me, very much my creativeness, it's like I create movies in my head of the businesses that I want to create. And it's like I have these, videos playing, and then it's about translating that into the people we need to actually execute the vision and the story or the movie, and then structures, like you said, and the processes to do that. And just with so much time, this is the second thing I learned, just manifesting and the power of manifestation. And you've still got to do the work, but getting real clear and manifesting on that vision and really seeing and hearing and feeling what it would be like to be successful. That has been something else. It's been something else I've learned through having so much time on my own, which if I'm with somebody else, that can't happen. Someone comes and interrupts, you have a chat, and you're out of that state, right? So that would be something else that I've learned that's been super powerful.
Yeah, and I think something we're going to hear again post-COVID is that there are going to be a lot of us who have probably will look back and go, we didn't make the most of that time. You're making the most of that time. I think there are going to be plenty within the community who are going to say, oh, look, when we look back on it now, we didn't make the most of doing something similar to what you're doing, or similar to maybe what I'm doing or what others are doing in terms of trying to make the most of this opportunity, as challenging as it is. And like, I've got a daughter in year 12 at Star of the Sea. And the challenges that it's been for her, and a son who just lives and breathes sport. And he's at year 10 at Brighton Grammar, and his inability not just to not play sport, but not see his mates. And then my daughter not to have a usual year 12, which is supposed to be, the best year of your schooling life, And in many ways, it's been taken away from her. And then the way that they have adapted and accepted it and dealt with it and moved on has been quite remarkable.
We have a bunch of resilient kids, don't we? They're pretty incredible. They'd be pretty incredible. Yep. And, you know, you see the resilient kids, and quite often you'll find out that they've got resilient parents. And I know definitely within yourself, in knowing you as a person, you're definitely a resilient parent. Matty Toms, you've been awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been an amazing chat. I look forward to catching up soon.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, BB.